Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Friday, the 18th of July, which makes this a discussion of the topics and news of interest for Ukraine, day 1240 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. I see the peeps are coming in. Hey, Eli. Hey, Roy Daniels. Hey, Steve with a V. Hey, Dawn. Hey, Seawolf. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Bakhmut. Hey, Mike Kelly. Hey, G2. Greetings, Holly. Hey, Sammy. Hey, Super User. Evening, James. Neil Steven. How do you do, Neil? Hey, everybody. There's Chris Carter. Chris Carter is the sponsor of tonight's live. Chris joined the Patreon at a membership level that gives him 2 live sponsorships a month. This is his second sponsorship for this month. Can't say enough good things about Chris Carter and the tremendous support that he has given this channel. This channel probably would not exist as it does without Chris and a couple other people that were there at the beginning. So thanks, Chris. Everybody thank Chris. Hey, Hobo. Hey, Nick Wood. Hey, Gino. Thanks, Tin Cup Dave. Evening, Jackie. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, there's Tom Weber. Hey, Tom Weber. Evening, Derek Sands. The peeps are coming in. It is certainly nice to see everybody here night after night. It is astonishing to me that this war slogs on the way that it does. It really is something, boy. Hey, Lil Red. How's everybody doing tonight? Wasn't much of an overnight missile and drone attack last night. No missiles at all. Hey, Richard Prexis. And just 64 drones. Now, curiously, last night with only 64 drones, the interception rate was only, curiously enough, 64% by coincidence. Hey, Uncle Christopher. So only 41 out of 64 drones intercepted. Hey, Hardly, I'm doing all right. Which is a surprisingly low interception rate. We saw interception rates for missiles and drones over 80% in those big attacks of 700, 600, 400. Just most recently at the 401 night. Hey, Di. So it is curious to me that on these small nights, only 64 drones, the interception rate is so low. Now, if we look at what was shot down, there were 36 shot down. And then there were another 5 taken out with electronic warfare or active countermeasures. So what's half of 64? 32, right? About half the drones they send on a regular night are decoys. So on these small scale nights, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, why the interception rate is so much less than it is on big nights. But I do notice a pattern. There is definitely a pattern. On the big nights, right, half the drones that get intercepted are decoys, and then half of them are attack drones. But looking at the numbers last night, it looks like all of the attack drones were hit and just the decoys were let go. I mean, it almost looks that way. But that's pure speculation. It's a common thing, though. It's a very common thing when the Ukrainian armed forces release these numbers on these nights like this, where it's a small-scale attack. It does seem that the number taken out by electronic warfare is never anywhere near half. Never. It's a very curious pattern that I have noticed. Hey, there's Ted Greenhow, who was our sponsor last night. No sponsor for tomorrow, guys. No sponsor for next week. So if anybody is up for sponsoring a live for the first time, the PayPal is in the description there. Hey, Flip, how's life in Brussels? I do love the international nature of our audience. I know I think I saw Kyiv here, right? That's Croatia, if I'm not mistaken. Flip's here from Brussels. Who else is here? Who else is represented? I didn't see Bjorn tonight. Where's Sweden? Is Sweden in the house? Netherlands? Croatia, there he is. Wales, of course, dies in Wales. UK, there's Bjorn. Jackie's in the Netherlands. UK, hey Maria. The country of Florida. That's funny. Hey Lola in Chicago. I'm a big fan of Chicago. I love getting lost in that art museum. Oh, and Tisno's here too from Croatia. Nice. Seawolf, I think it's something like that. I really honestly do. Right? In the heat of things, when you don't know what's what and the sky is full, you got to take everything out that you can. But when it's more manageable and you have time to maybe experiment with new methodologies, something like that could be going on. I don't know. Australia. California. Hey, Van. South Africa. God damn. It really is the age of miracles and wonders, isn't it? Good job, Croatia. Bunch of Swedes here. Bjorn is like the leader of the Swede pack, though. He's the guy that's consistently here. Portugal. Esse amor compaixão. Ai que coisa. So, guys, I'll tell you, there is, by September, TikTok goes to U.S. ownership. We'll see what happens. Nobody knows what's going to happen, you know. Just looking at this war, it's awful hard to tell what's actually happening. You know, I was thinking about this all day. With the RU drones, do they know how many hit or got shot down in Russia? Wait, with the Russian drones, do they know how many got hit or shot down in Russia? Very few of the Russian drones coming at Ukraine get shot down over Russia. That's not going to be a thing. Those air defense systems work inside Ukraine, to the best of my knowledge. Now, at the front line, you know, especially in Kursk, Tetkino, there may be some forward air defense units that take some of them out. But my guess is that the vast majority are taken out in Ukraine. Because Russia outnumber Ukraine in drones. Well, I don't think so, James. I mean, it depends on what drones you're talking about, too, right? There's a lot of different drones. The Ukrainians are producing about 200,000 drones a month. So I don't think that it's the Russians that have drone superiority. Now, with those big attack drones, the Shaheds, they do, but certainly not with the drones that are causing all the devastation on the front line. That is squarely where Ukraine shines. Squarely. Germany and Ukraine have developed a long-range missile which will be sent to Ukraine. Now, I thought that those missiles were being produced in Ukraine rather than sent here, Nightshade. I thought the Germans had localized production on that. Hey, Nicola. Welcome. Hey, Pugga Mahone. Well, Russia does 5,400 Shaheds a month and decoys, right? So about 2,700 attack drones and another 2,700 decoy Shaheds. Production numbers for things like the Orion and other drone types are unknown to me. So they produce way more than 5,000 a month, but I don't believe it's anywhere near the 200,000 that the Ukrainians are producing. I don't have any specs on the new German long-range missiles, only that the first few hundred are supposed to reach the front line by the end of the month. Belgium stepped on the German initiative for that air defense. So are you saying, Flip, that Belgium is going to help out with the 2 Patriot missile batteries that the Germans are going to buy for Ukraine? Or are you saying they're going to contribute to the $10 billion arms deal for Ukraine that doesn't really exist, but that Trump claimed existed the other day? Yeah, that was my understanding too, Pugga Mahone. They will contribute for a system. Well, it's amazing to me. You got the Germans, you got the UK, you got the Belgians, you got the Nordic countries, you got the Baltic countries. You got everybody ponying up money for the defense of Ukraine in light of Russian aggression. And then you have the President of the United States making up a deal that doesn't exist for arms sales that nobody is willing to pay for, where our allies found out about this the same time we all did. Well, James, that's a really rude and inappropriate way to phrase that question. So you look like a troublemaker to me. Want to laugh? Trump had a problem with his veins, blood flow from his legs. I don't find anything funny about poor blood circulation in anybody. Heard Sweden was going to step up with big Patriot missiles. Is this true? What did we just hear from the Swedes? Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of the Swiss. You might be thinking of the Swiss too, Ron. But the Swiss had ordered a couple of Patriot missile batteries from the Raytheon Corporation a while back, and were expecting delivery of them. Instead, Bern has said that they are going to wait, or the United States has told Bern they're going to wait, and those missile systems will be sent to Ukraine instead. So it's just, it's just a question of priorities. Only so many Patriot batteries can be manufactured a year. Nobody is attacking the Swiss in their giant hollowed out mountains with their chocolate and their watches and a lot of mid-century art that we won't ask where it came from. So nobody's attacking the Swiss right now. And so the decision has been made to prioritize the delivery of those Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. It just means that the Swiss are going to have to wait. Lexi's causing problems in the chat. Do we have any moderators here or not? T-Bar guy was in the Raytheon facility in Canada last week. High security to get in there. Well, one would hope so, pal. One would hope so. Last time Switzerland was invaded was 1798 by France. Interesting. Hey, Tony. Hey, Bamba Squeezer. We can speculate all day and all night on whether or not Trump has a heart. There's a great deal of evidence to indicate that if he does, it is two sizes too small. That's for sure. WNC is like, no, no heart there. Clearly. No heart. So, guys, I've been thinking a lot about what's happening out there, because it definitely feels like there's a major change happening. I was looking today at the Ukrainian drone attacks inside Russia. And it's hard to know where to start. I mean, there are so many. We could look at Kursk alone and see, well, just on the front line. Forget about last night's drone attacks. Just on the front line, we saw 4 self-propelled guns and 5 air defense systems destroyed in the last 24 hours. That's just one region of fighting. Now, look, there's no doubt that the Russians are pushing hard all along the front line. Clearly, for the Russians, they are in this mindset that they have 50 days to capture all of the illegally annexed territories so that they can call a ceasefire and Putin can claim victory. That seems to be what Putin is pushing for. But even on Russian TV, the analysts are saying that such an advance in 2 months is impossible. It's impossible. It's insane. The Russians have been stalled 20 to 15 kilometers outside of Pokrovsk for a year, almost. It's nearly a year since Ukrainian troops have been going to bed and waking up every morning in control of Russian territory in Kursk. And now they're not just controlling territory in Kursk, they're controlling territory in Belgorod too. Somebody asked the question or commented on one of my videos, where are the Freedom of Russia legions? Well, they're in Kursk, under heavy fighting, holding Russian territory, in the face of a dying regime that is desperate to eject them from their lands. And they can't get them out. And it is drawing resources from all over Ukraine, especially from Kherson and Crimea, where we have seen just supplies and men and machines coming across to Rostov, and from Rostov being shipped to Kursk. And what are the implications of pulling all of those men and machines out of Crimea and Kherson and Zaporizhia too, and sending them north to Kursk? What are the Ukrainians accomplishing by holding Russian territory for nearly a year now, right? August 6th, it'll be 1 year. They have pinned, right? Like we keep talking about, you keep seeing in the mainstream press, right? The big press. Russia masses 65,000 troops in Kursk. Russia hasn't massed 65,000 troops in Kursk. The Ukrainians have pinned 65,000 troops in Kursk, and they are grinding them to smithereens. Meanwhile, the Russians are hollowing out Kherson and sending all those men and machines up north. Now, interestingly, and perhaps to this very point, today we saw Ukrainian Special Forces Marines perform some operation on the Kinburn Spit. Now, if you look at a map, right, and you look at the Dnipro River, the Dnipro River splits the country in half, and then it empties into the Black Sea. But it does that at this angle that creates this peninsula off of Crimea and Kherson that extends way out into the Black Sea. That's the Kinburn Spit. There's only one road on it. It's not very wide. Strategically, it may have some value. It's less than 60 miles from Odessa, right? About, 90 kilometers, something like that. As a launching point for drones and offensive actions against everywhere from Mykolaiv to Odessa, it's potentially a valuable strategic point. Also, it's likely that the Russians house electronic warfare equipment there to jam drones that are coming from mainland Ukraine into Crimea. So we're not exactly sure why the Marines hit the Kinburn Spit, but they did. In an overnight operation, they landed in that westernmost occupied territory of the Russian Federation. They came across the Straits of Dnipro, landed on the Kinburn Spit, did some shit, probably blew some shit up. We're not really sure. But one of the things that they did was they placed a Ukrainian flag high on a building right there at the very tip of the spit. Symbolic gesture more than anything else. Certainly the Marines were not planning on staying. They're not planning on taking territory. They were there to blow some shit up and get the fuck out. And they did that. But not before they hung this huge flag up on the building, which was certainly a beautiful symbolic sentiment, though it's not going to last long, right? The Russians are going to be in there. They're going to clean it out. All right, we'll come back to that in 1 second. I wish I knew what was going on. I mean, I can report events, and we can talk about all the things that Ukraine blew up last night. But that does not capture what's happening. There's a change happening. Now, this guy here, Dan Noga, says Russia will win this war. Why? It's simply because of numbers. Russia has millions more fighters. And that is what Russia is counting on, right? Like Dan is just parroting what the Russians believe about themselves. But here's the problem with this line of thinking, is that it assumes that people will just keep fighting because they're told they have to. And that is not how the human race works. The Ukrainians know why they're fighting. They're fighting to prevent an imperialistic aggressor from the erasure of their culture, people, language, and history from the world. That's what they're fighting for, right? As the meme goes, if Russia stops fighting, there's peace. If Ukraine stops fighting, there's no more Ukraine. And that's a very accurate picture of this conflict. And the fact is that the Russians are just there for the money. They have fallen into the Russian debt trap, where wages in Russia haven't moved significantly in 30 years of corruption under this administration. And they've fallen into that debt trap. They have no other recourse. The signing bonus is 4 years' worth of salary to the average Russian. It's a windfall. The problem is the Russians can't keep affording to pay for it, right? Now, I know we talk a lot about how bad things are in the Russian economy, and nobody knows when the Russian economy is going to crack. However, it's important to recognize things that I said would happen when they happen. And on this subject of the Russian economy, for those of you following this channel, it was back in November, where I first mentioned that Russian coal mines were in trouble. The coal mining business in Russia was in trouble. It was in January that I first suggested that analysts were saying that fully half of the Russian coal mines are going to have to declare bankruptcy this year. Now, Russia's got about 174 coal mines currently operational, right? But the industry is losing money. We are with the end of June, we are halfway through the year, Q1, and the books are closed on Q1 and Q2. And what did we see? 51 coal producers declare bankruptcy in the first half of 2025. Now, in January, I had, again, just crunching the number from the analysts, we said that roughly half of the coal producers would be out of business, bankrupt, before the end of the year. 174 coal mines in Russia. Half of that is 137. Or I'm sorry, no, it's not. 174 divided by 2 is 87. Sorry, 87. 87 due to go bankrupt. 51 have declared bankruptcy so far this year. Thank you, Steve. Nightshade, that's a great question. Nightshade asked the question, what are the knock-on effects of this? What does this mean? Well, there's 120 towns, right? So of the 174 coal mines, there are 120 coal mining towns where there is no other employment there except the coal mine. That's 51 towns that are going to have a very high level of unemployment. And the knock-on effects of that are going to be disastrous. They're going to be disastrous. It's either going to mean, and this is just one industry. Lots of industries in Russia are under pressure in similar ways. The Russian automobile manufacturing industry. Sales are down 93% for new cars this year. You know the layoffs are coming, the closures are coming, the bankruptcies are coming. Fuck, even military defense contractors are declaring bankruptcy or suing the government because they haven't been paid. The one business where you're supposed to be assured of getting paid, and they're not getting paid. Bjor, I haven't seen the numbers on lumber. It's a good point to make, right? Russia exports a lot of lumber, but I have not seen the numbers on lumber. That's a good question. 30% defaults of what, Bamba? Will that translate to more soldiers from the unemployed? Michael, that's a great question. Will Russia find it easier to recruit now? Are people going to be so desperate? But are those the people that are going to fight? They're not the people that are going to fight. You fight for a cause. You fight for something you believe in. You don't fight for the money. At least most people don't. Lada should have been bankrupt before now. If there really was a free market in Russia, that would be true. So I really do see this data on coal company bankruptcies as a major data point for all the red flags that we have raised regarding the stability and long-term integrity of the Russian markets. As I have suggested before, I just can't see how the Russian economy will survive the December budget reconciliations. And in fact, we saw a warning today from a member of the parliament in Russia, the Duma, which is, I don't know why I hate that word so much. It's such a dumb word, Duma. I hate that word. I hate saying it. I think it's a dumb word. I don't know how the word Duma describes your legislative branch of government. Anyway. A member of the Duma today warned that if other sources of revenue are not found, the government will be facing a major financial shortfall by November. And I think that's right. All the data points that way. And all the data points that way if you take the Russians at their word. If you believe what they have been telling us about non-oil and gas sources of revenue. Because it was very funny to me 2 years ago when the oil sanctions first went in, watching as oil and gas revenues for the federal budget dropped, non-oil and gas revenues magically compensated every month. Every month. Oh, we lost 13 billion rubles last month in tax revenue from oil and gas. But look, everybody, we got 13 billion rubles in tax revenue from non-oil and gas. Really? Really? How did that happen? How did that magically happen? Now, Smokey says, could or would the oligarchs bail Russia out? Smokey, I think they have been. That 13 billion in rubles that just appeared out of nowhere, who's to say where that money came from? We don't know because the Russians are no longer sharing their detailed tax revenue data. We just have top line numbers. That's all we get. So is it possible that the Russians have been taking money out of their own piggy banks to float the government? I don't know the answer to that. It's more likely, I think, simply that the Russians are cooking the books and that 13 billion rubles never came in. And when we get to the December budget reconciliation, all of that is going to come out. It's all going to hit the fan at once. And I don't know how the Russian government is going to keep paying its bills. especially not if we can get further secondary sanctions out of the U.S. government. That's another thing, right? Those are revenue sources. Roy Daniels and Nicola Jones mention the nationalization of private enterprise in Russia. All of that could have been sources of revenue kind of off the books and then slotted on the books, right, where they wanted it to show up. So you take something like Juniper. Juniper was operating, if I remember right, it was 5 thermal power plants in various regions of Russia with a market value, I want to say between 5 and 7 billion euros. If I'm not mistaken, it was right around that. And all of that got nationalized. Well, who made out on that deal? Where did that generate money to the oligarchs? Or is the government running those now and they're making money off them? It's hard to say because some of these have been resold to private industry. Some have been gifted to private industry as apparent political favors to oligarchs that keep Putin propped up. And others have simply been nationalized and they're considering selling them on the open market, like Danone yogurt and Carlsberg beer. And there was another energy company too. I want to say a Nordic energy company. They had 7 power plants, if I'm not mistaken, and they were all nationalized as well. So the rats are eating each other. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. We see that. What happens when the military doesn't get paid? So Seawolf, in the normal world, when that happens, the military, frags their commanders and turns their guns on the dictator that's not paying them, right? The problem is in the Russian army, you don't get bullets until you're dropped off at the contact line where you can only shoot Ukrainians. And then the other problem in the Russian army is if you decide to turn around and try to shoot your commander when you finally get your bullets, there are troops there that will shoot you. So there are barrier troops that prevent desertions, prevent retreats, or prevent kind of revolt. Those barrier troops were commonly from the Wagner PMC and from the Akhmat brigades, the Chechen brigades. That's who's been doing that dirty work for the Russians all this time. And I say that because it's important to recognize, based on dozens and dozens and dozens of video pleas from Russian soldiers, that they have no food, they have no water, they have no medical care, and they have not been paid. Their appeals to dear leader, to Putin, to do something about it when he's the one who created the situation they are in. Based on the prevalence of these videos, Seawolf, it would appear that when you don't pay the Russian army, they expect it. They expect to be screwed because they don't seem to be doing too much about it at all. And it seems to be a problem that's endemic. Didn't Assad allegedly take, steal 180 billion from Syria when he fled to Russia? The number that comes to mind, Dave, is 139 billion. Is right, but I would have to take a look at that. So it was over $100 billion, definitely. What happened to that money? You think Assad got to keep that? Seems unlikely. Doesn't Trump compromise make any meaningful action by Trump against Russia impossible? Yes, absolutely it does. And that's why it's important to recognize that this arms deal that was announced is not an arms deal at all. that there is no arms deal, that all that's really happening is that the aid to Ukraine, as far as I can tell, guys, as far as I can tell, the only thing that's really happening with this big announcement we got this week is that Trump has stopped illegally delaying Biden-era shipments of weapons approved by an act of Congress to Ukraine. And he is finally shipping them what we promised them when Biden was still in office. So, yeah, no, we can't count on Trump for anything meaningful. Even this 50 days is just to give Putin his summer campaign, to give him another 2 months of murdering Ukrainians for his own imperial ambitions. It's a crime and a sin. Russia's like an old shell. The engine has already stopped, but the wheels are still turning. You're not kidding. Whatever happened to the Wagner Group? So, Bip, the Wagner Group was essentially disbanded. Elements of it were reconstituted in Africa as the Africa Corps, which is so offensive on so many levels. And they continue their sabotage and destabilization efforts in Africa in order to exploit natural resources for their own benefit. Right? A lot of that African gold came out of Mali, paid for those Shahed drones that the Iranians sent. The gold went straight from Mali to Iran, and then Iran sent the Shaheds across the Caspian Sea. So elements of the Wagner Group were reconstituted as the Africa Corps in Africa. They were absorbed into multiple units inside the Russian military, or individuals were allowed to leave the Wagner Group and sign contracts with other private military companies, right? Like Gazprom has its own private army. Rosneft has its own private army. And so you could go to work for them. And that is my best understanding of what happened to the Wagner Group. Putin definitely only stabilized his GDP through high payments. I don't know what any of that means. Trump is spewing crazy shit that never happened. Yeah. He's been doing that since the beginning. Pixie says Mertz told us today it is concrete. Sorry, Pixie, what's concrete? No, bro dog, nobody has seen Assad since he went to Russia. So guys, we have about 13 minutes left. Before I forget, let me again thank Chris Carter, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Hey, Trav. We have no sponsors for tomorrow or next week. If anybody can sponsor a live, please consider doing so. I sure would appreciate it. Help keep me here in Ukraine. Or hopefully I can do a little bit of good. Fun trophy. Aren't all trophies fun? Gee, I'm not talking to you, jackass. Thanks, Jan, for the kitty. Everybody congratulate Travis. Our buddy Hacky Sack Trav there broke 14,000 followers this week. Nicely done. Trump loves trophies. Oh, God, can you believe that son of a bitch stealing that trophy? It's ridiculous. He's a toddler. He's toddler Hitler. Okay, questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need, anything from anybody. And the money kept rolling in. Any more on the damaged Russian ship? Nope, just that they got it to Sevastopol, docked it, and left it there. And I think that that's all that's going to happen. I don't think anything else is going to happen to that ship. If they were going to fix it, they would have left it at the shipyards, right? They just got it out of the way. The Russians warning the world about this or that or threatening this or that. Wait, let me see. I think I have the quote here, actually. Today, now get this, Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin mouthpiece and Putin ass-kisser du jour, said, Europe maintains a rabid militaristic attitude toward Moscow. Europe maintains a rabid militaristic outlook toward Moscow. You got to be fucking kidding me. You got to be fucking kidding me. Who do you think cut the underwater cables in the Baltic? Who do you think cut the Baltic cables? I think the Russians did it. Front lines are stable, Mike Kelly. The front lines are not really moving. Thanks, Feisty. Good on Europe. Steve says that that's a good defensive strategy to have, is to know who the fuck your enemies are. Right? Who started the biggest land war in Europe since World War II? Who has lost 1 million men, 11,000 tanks, 30,000 artillery systems, 22,000 armored personnel carriers, squandered the vast Soviet inheritance, their stockpiles, and it only cost America 5% of 1 year's defense budget. And America wants thanks from Ukraine? Give me a fucking break. We should be on our knees thanking Ukraine for what they did. That's the best return on investment that we ever had. See, Wolf, you can listen to whoever you want to listen to. But I don't believe anything like that is going to happen in any way, shape, or form. Not going to happen. Does Ukraine even have enough pay? No. Oh, we don't know, Ron. It's a good question. We don't know how many Patriot missiles Ukraine still has. How many lives could have been saved if those Patriots were there now? We'll never know, Scully. We'll never know. Sure, Polka Paul. Didn't Germany build the Terminator tanks? Rings a bell, Mike, but I'm not No, wait, the Terminators. You're talking about the Russian Terminator tanks? I'm pretty sure they're homemade. They're built in Russia. They're domestically produced. Very rare item. The Russians don't have a lot of them. As I understand it, they are extremely heavy. Almost impossible to hurt, but very difficult to run. 2 kilometers to the liter or something. Nightshade, do you know anything about the Terminator tanks? Scully says she saw one on one of your posts. The air attacks have reduced since Kellogg got to town. Big D, I'm not sure that's entirely true. When did General Kellogg arrive? Because last night we saw only 64 drones, but the night before was 401. Things run together, don't they, Nightshade? Guys, if you don't follow Nightshade, give Nightshade a follow. He posts lots of point in time snapshots of the day's events. How about okay, yeah, we did that. Yeah, no, he got here Monday. So, Big D, you really can't say that. We saw one attack of 401 drones. That 6 weeks ago, that would have been a record breaker. Now I think it's number 7 on the list, something like that. So I definitely don't think we saw any real reduction. Now, Kyiv was not, now legitimately, Kyiv was not the main target of that attack, and that's where Kellogg was. So maybe there's something to it. I'm not sure. My question is, look, if the Russians are producing 5,400 Shaheds and decoys a month, then they can do big attacks like, 400 drones a night, 10 nights of the month, every third day. And then in between, you have these little attacks like last night of 64 drones. I think we're just going to see more of that. Lito, I wish I knew where the Taurus was. I don't know if Mertz is going to come through on that or not. He may. We may all find out about it the same morning that the Russians do. Big D, you're confusing General Keith Kellogg with Harry Potter, pal. Hey, Renvox. Okay, guys, with 4 minutes left on the clock, chat in any final questions or thoughts. I want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. I want to thank Lars, who has the Discord server, the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk, Jay, Travis, Pete, and Maddie. And then I also want to thank our sponsor for tonight, Chris Carter. Chris joined the Patreon at a level that gives him 2 sponsorships a month. And this was his second sponsorship for this month, so I'm deeply appreciative to Chris Carter for his long-term and ongoing support. Thank you, Chris Carter. If you want to be like Chris and help keep this channel alive, keep the news flowing from Ukraine, then please consider joining the Patreon or sponsoring a live. For live sponsorships, PayPal is in the description, and the Patreon link is also in the description. If you want to do both, you can get yourself a $5 a month live, right? That would normally be $60. But if you pay for the year, Patreon gives you a 10% discount. And I will also give you a live sponsorship. So anybody signs up for Patreon, pays for the year, you get a live sponsorship. If you do more than the $5 subscription, we can talk. Whatever you'd like. We can work it out. Has anybody talked to Bobby in San Diego? I'm a little bit concerned. I haven't heard from him lately. And Feisty. Thanks, Feisty. Feisty was pulling some duty tonight. Thanks, Feisty. And we hit 130,000 likes. You guys are ridiculous. Insane. Thank you very much. It is nice to close the live every night. And every night I get an email that says things like, your live got 98% more or you got more likes than 98% of creators in your category. It's always nice to see that. I'm going to have to give him a call, Nickel. I'll call him after the live and check in on him. Yeah, me neither. That's definitely a concern. Well, thanks, Dawn. Appreciate it. All right, guys, anybody got anything else? Any final questions, final thoughts? Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Smokey. Thank you, Scully. You have a great day. Oh my God. Nightshade, that is a nightmare to even think of. I never even thought of that. Bobby's an American. I mean, but you're not wrong. Ugh, it's making me crazy. I hope so too, Flip. I mean, with these ICE assholes, he could be. I mean, it would never even have occurred to me. Because he's as American as apple pie, which, by the way, is Dutch. Yes, they have, Nightshade. You're not wrong. All right, kids. It's 1 a.m. here in beautiful uptown Kyiv. I'm going to call it a night. Take care, everybody.